Hello again. As you may or may not know, I am Eli the Computer Guy, and INE has invited me down here to Durham, North Carolina to interview technology professionals in the area to talk about their careers and how they got to where they are. Right now I'm with John Foley, Associate Director of IT at Chimerix Incorporated. Chimerix. Yeah, what are you gonna do? So you're an Associate Director of IT at Chimerix. What is an associate? Because I know director of IT, and I know manager. What's an associate director of IT?
Well, I was manager of IT, and they wanted to move me up, but they didn't want to make me director of IT just yet, so they had to make me just associate. So I'm working my way up.
You're working your way up. Okay. So it's more like, because it's always interesting. Everybody always asks about these titles. Like they think it's like, a CCIE or an MCSE. Like these titles are very specific, but this is more, it's a title that they gave you to fit you in the slot.
Yeah, I'm still doing the same job, a little bit of everything, but they wanted to show that they appreciated me being there, so I can appreciate that.
Yeah, that works. So how did you get into IT way back when? You said you're doing like pizza, like something?
Yeah, I used to deliver pizzas, work as an assistant manager for a pizza restaurant, and my dad sent me back to school.
Really?
I had always liked computers. I grew up with an Apple II Plus.
Okay,
And I got into college, started out as computer science, and didn't finish, and wound up working in restaurants as a manager. And my dad sent me back to school. He said, "Hey, this is something that you need to learn." And that was towards the beginning of networking back in it would be the 90s, yes. And Novell Networks, and I learned a lot of. I went back to class at nights when I wasn't working pizza, and picked that up, and then just enjoyed it so much I just built on it from there.
So it says though you have your Bachelor of Arts in Asian Studies.
Yeah, I have a Bachelor in Asian Studies and an MBA.
And the MBA I understand that one, but okay. So you're doing computer science, you drop out, then you go back. Where does the Asian Studies come in?
I spent a long time working with working in networking, working in security, and I didn't need a degree to do that because I pursued the certifications, and I could go in and show them with the certifications and the knowledge that I had that I could do the job, and that didn't become a problem until roughly the last 5 years or so, when there's been more of a focus on actually having some sort of degree.
Okay.
There are a lot of places that won't consider you for anything if you don't have a degree. A lot of the bigger companies, Verizon and others, that's what they wanted was some degree. Some kind of degree. So I figured it was about time for me to go back to school, and I wanted to do something I like. So I went back and finished in Asian Studies. If anything, it helps because at least when the Chinese malware comes in, I can read it. So there's always that plus.
That's interesting. So you can actually read Chinese then?
I can read a little Chinese, yeah.
Does that, because we keep hearing that China's taking over everything. Does that actually help you? I mean, it's cute to say, but does it actually ever come into being useful?
No, it really doesn't. We don't get a lot of Chinese malware. Most everything's written, it's code, so it'll translate as best as it knows how. But, it's more useful when I want to go shopping at Alibaba and find something that we can't find here. So
well, I've noticed that like with like when I used to order hardware and things, like it started getting just simply drop shipped out of Hong Kong. Like it wasn't even getting shipped out of the U.S. anymore. It was getting FedEx directly from there. So then so you're getting so you're doing your computer science degree, and then you go back to college again. And then you stopped going to college, and then you just recently finished up? Is that the deal? Or?
I wasn't a good student, let's say.
Okay.
I had a little too much fun. So I got kicked out of school. So that's how I wound up doing restaurant work. So, then I wanted to go back and finish, and so I went back and finished that degree, and since I was still doing a lot of that, I figured I might as well continue, and so I finished the MBA.
Oh, so you
to just kind of round it out and give me a little bit more of the business understanding.
So is there any advice you can give on, because I mean, a lot of people do get kicked out or don't make it their first time. Is there any like realistic advice on on how to keep going, or maybe to put on, like, do you feel like you should have put off for an extra year or two, or?
Everything changes once you get kicked out and you got to pay for things yourself. It really does. And I was working 40 hours a week doing landscape work outside in the sun all day, and then wind up going to school at night. So just to finish the 2-year degree, which I finished in 4 years. But I think if you just have to push through, you have to, if it's something that you want to do, you got to make the time for it. I've spent most of, I've spent most of my life working 40 hours a week and doing everything else at night. And it's difficult, but there's always a reward to it. And I get to do the stuff that I like to do, and and it pays well. I can't complain.
So then you went straight then into your MBA. So what was your decision on the MBA? So if you're in IT already, you like IT. Like, why not a master's in information systems or one of these other? Why do you go for the MBA?
Well, I have a lot of experience in computers and networks and everything else, and the Asian studies is one degree. It's a arts degree, and then I could have done an MIS, but I wanted more of the business background, because I figured if at some point that I wanted to do management or I was going to be pushed towards management, I might as well have the skills that were associated with it to back it up. And I spent a lot of time, my whole life I've been technical. I haven't had to manage people as much or manage a budget or any of the rest of those things, or understand those moving parts of working in IT that someone as IT manager or a director of IT would have. So the MBA was more to go back and learn those other skills that I didn't have, so that even if I don't use them, at least I understand when my boss says, hey, this is our budget, how do we work through that? How do we account for all the things? When accounting comes back and says, hey, we need to depreciate all of these assets, what does that actually mean for me?
Cool. So then it says here, your first job, your internetwork engineering?
That was one of my, there's some other ones before that, but that was my first one in North Carolina, was internetwork engineering. And that was out of Charlotte, and we did a lot of, and that was primarily Cisco and Microsoft. And they hired me because I had taken a couple of the Cisco classes and passed the tests that were associated with them. And they hired me up here. I moved up from Florida to take that job. And it worked out real well. It was consulting work. It was more go out and do a project. Here's the amount of time you get to do it. But it was a lot of fun.
Was there anything you learned, like being your first job, was there something, because you were there for about 3 years, was there anything specific you remember from doing that? Like, lessons learned? Did you do anything stupid? Did you do anything smart that, you'd tell people to do?
There's always one thing stupid and there's always one thing smart. We'll start with the smart one and then we'll move on.
There we go.
The smart one, is, just when you're dealing in IT, no matter what it is, no matter what the mistake is, no matter whose fault it is, you just have to accept it and move forward. I can remember being told that, I didn't deliver the client the documentation that he was expecting to have at the time that he was expecting to have it. And so he had an issue and he didn't have the documentation. That's what my boss came back and told me. And, And, you know, I told my boss, I said, yep, you're right. Maybe I didn't deliver it to him. Let me go fix it right now. Okay. I went, I took care of it. You know, it turned out that I had delivered the documentation. I delivered it to the clients, one of the other people who had worked with the client. Yeah. But, you know, just accepting that responsibility, no matter what it is, you know, if there's a mistake that's made, you just have to own up to it. You don't hide it. You don't, you know, ignore it. You do whatever it is to fix it, even if it's not yours. Okay. You know, if you know what can be done to resolve it, because it's all about making sure that everything works in IT. If you're doing your job right, no one knows who you are. Technically, if you're the network engineer and the network's working like it's supposed to, they won't know about you. But as soon as something goes wrong, they will know your name, and they will remember it. So, you know,
but a lot of people get worried, like if they take the blame for something, then that means their career is screwed up, and then it's all downhill from there.
You know, you're going to make mistakes. Everybody's going to make mistakes, and in IT, you're going to make mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, it's a problem, because it means you're not making more of an effort to do whatever it is you're doing. You know, everybody. I can say that I've shut down a router before, you know, working remotely on a router, and I've done something and realized I shouldn't have executed that command before, and shut down a router and had to have somebody go out and you know, in a location not in the US and power it up again. So, you know, those things are going to happen. The real question comes, do you learn from those things? You know, is it something that you can use to grow with and become more successful, to have a better understanding with? And it helps you when you're dealing with similar issues later, that you know, oh, okay, I got to take care here, you know, in these particular spots to make sure that things get done well.
So then you were there, so you're there for like 3 years. And then you're Senior Network Administrator 3 at Trimeris?
Yep, you get that one.
No, but the funny part is, like, if you look at the resume, so you're somewhere almost 6 years, and literally there's like nothing there. Like, what did you do there?
Well, that was a pharmaceutical company, and I took that job because I needed to be home. I had a family situation where I had the kids and I had to take care of them. So it means, you know, after school, I got to be home. So doing consulting work isn't conducive to that. You know, there were some times where, you know, you're working on something late at night because that's the window for IT, or you know, you don't finish at 5 o'clock like everybody else does and go home. That's just the job. So I took that position to be a little closer to home. And, you know, that was a jack of all trades type position. You know, as a network administrator, you know, you learn servers, you learn the network, you learn security, you learn all of those things. And so that was my main focus there, was, you know, learn all of the different moving components for a single company.
Okay. And so you could actually have a job where you don't get called at midnight?
Well, yeah. I'd get called every once in a while, but you know, it was a situation where I didn't have to get called. There were other people there too, so I could send one of them. So that's always good.
So then you're there, and then you get, so this is what everybody wants to know. Then you have like the holy grail of jobs everybody in the world wants. Network Security Supervisor. So how were you qualified to get that job then? Because like everybody now wants that security designation. So how did you get to be a security professional?
Towards the last couple of years at Trimeris, we knew that the company was going to shut down. They had a drug on the market, but the board of directors decided that they didn't want to do any more with the company. So they basically closed down the company. So I spent the last year of my time there really learning the other skills that I had let go. By, you know, you work in one position, sometimes you just do what you need to do. You don't pick up the other certifications, you don't pick up, the newer skills that you might need.
Yeah.
So I spent time going back and learning Cisco again, and picking up CISSP, CISA, all of those certifications. I had them before, but I went back and took the tests again. I picked up other things that were more security focused. At the time I was working on Cisco security, firewalls, and picking material from INE and other providers, and just really running through that stuff. And so that was at the time I did digital forensics. I took a digital forensics class, and I liked that stuff, and started working on that. And network security supervisor was more network supervisor, but the experience that I had as a network administrator helped me out there, because it was still applications. It was the antivirus, and it was how do we do patch management, and not just securing the network, and how do we look at it from a bigger picture. And the reason I got that position is they needed somebody to come in. They had done an audit, a security audit, had somebody come in and do a security audit, and they found some places that they wanted to fix. And so they hired somebody in to help fix that, and that was me.
So were you going for a security position where you're like, the next job I want security, or did this happen to be the job that you were hired
No,
for?
I was actually going for security, because I could see that everything was going that way. I had spent a lot of time in the network side, and you could see that security was starting to ramp up a lot quicker around that time. We were having a lot more, we had a lot of malware problems around that time. A lot of viruses that caught everybody, and so there was a bigger focus. And
so then when in your career did you start? Because at this point you're about 8-9 years in. So when did you start taking like the security certifications and the security training?
That was about that time that I started doing all of the security, that kind of focus on security certifications and training, and and I really liked it. It was having the network background made a bigger difference for security. It's easy to create a couple of rules on the firewall, but if you actually understand why you're creating those rules, where, when somebody says, man-in-the-middle attack, understanding what that actually means from a network side, how do we see it, it makes a bigger difference. So having that background, the network security was a natural progression from there.
And then, so you're saying you did digital forensics, and so again, that's another big buzzword. Did you actually do digital forensics, and like what did that actually mean? Because I hear that a lot, like people want to do digital forensics, but then I talk with companies that have zero interest in paying for digital forensics. They're just like, give me an excuse to fire that person, and you're like, well, we have a log that says they did it. Fine, good enough, they're fired. Like actual forensics, I haven't seen a lot of companies really want to get that far into it.
And they really don't.
They
don't want to find out what their employees are doing a lot of the times. It's usually when there's a problem that they come back and say, find out what this person's done. And I've gotten those. And that was part of it. Was I took the class, and I liked learning that, how you could read information off the hard drive, and that when you delete things that they're still there, just the pointer to it is missing. And while that whole process has changed a lot over the last 8 years, and it's gotten easier and better, and I don't see companies wanting to know all of that. Network forensics is a big thing, but that's more after we've had an incident. So I've gotten requests to do, when I was working at different places, I've gotten requests, hey, take this hard drive and tell me what they've been doing, because we suspect he's been doing something. And I've done those, and they're not easy things to do, because there's a whole lot of liability there. There's a whole lot of, what if you find something that you're not supposed to? And I've run into things that you probably shouldn't have been doing, or people taking pictures they probably shouldn't have been taking, or going to places that they shouldn't have been doing. I got one of those jobs because they wanted to look at what somebody who was in the position prior to me was doing. And so they handed me his laptop and said, "Here, see what you can do with it."
Okay, yeah. So then with that kind of thing, with you doing forensics, I was always nervous with that. It wasn't so bad as a normal consultant, because the person normally owned the computer. Normally the recovery was they did something stupid. But when you get in the corporate world, especially in the U.S., there's some really bizarre laws about private information on somebody else's computer, and then if you recover it, you can you can run into some issues. Did you think about how to protect yourself from that? Did you get the company to sign something that say you're not liable, or they'll protect you?
It's always important to make sure you have a clear mandate for those tasks that they're asking you to do. That you go back and say to the lawyer, put it in writing, because you want it in writing. You don't want your boss to come and say, "Here, do this laptop for me," and then you find out, well, he didn't have the permission to give you that laptop to begin with. So always, that was the big thing, was making sure that I wasn't violating any laws doing it. And where do you stop? If you find blank, what does that mean? Is it now something that I've got to stop the investigation because it's now a criminal investigation? And how do we deal with those types of issues?
So how do you deal with that, though? Because one of the problems you run into, as everybody complains about, and I will admit, sometimes you have stupid managers, and so sometimes the stupid manager will tell you, "Yes, you have the right to do this," even when they don't have the. So who do you talk to, or who do you try to fact check to make sure you do have the authority to do something?
Well, if it's your manager, get it in writing from them. Get it in an email. Even email's good enough. For most things. And if there's ever a question, it's always the CEO or the company's lawyer. Those are the best places to go for, finding out if you truly have, HR's a help. But, ultimately it comes back to, does the lawyer know what's going on for the company? And if he does, if he doesn't, he probably should, because no matter what you're doing, the lawyer always needs to be involved.
So you're talking about you have your CISSP. You've actually got a lot of stuff going on. So if somebody's starting for these security certifications, which is the best certification to go for then, if you're trying to figure out for security or such?
Well, a lot of it depends on what your focus is, or what you think you'll be working on. If it's going to be network security, it's the CCNA security, or something network focused. If it's a pure security one, like the CISSP, requires a lot of work in security as one of the prerequisites to get in the CISSP. Then it's look at some of the other ones that are available. Some of the, there's plenty of other security certifications that are good. As things are growing, cloud security is going to become big, if not already. It really depends on where you're working and what you want to do, what you like.
So how far into your career, if somebody wants to do security, because everybody, they've got 2 days experience and they want to become security professionals. When would you suggest that they start going for the security if they're interested in it? Should they do it from day one? Should they get 5 years experience?
No, I would say start as soon as you can, because it's going to change over the course of the time anyway. It's not going to hurt you to start at the beginning and spend an hour or two a night or a week, whatever you can work out to learn the skills. Get as much as you can to read and find the websites that everybody likes. Talk to the people who are doing that type of work now. and ask them. There's plenty of meetup groups or other groups that are, what are you reading? What websites do you look at?
Yeah.
Where do you get your information from? And how do you keep track of it? And just, spend the time, get some labs that you can do. Virtual labs are easy to do. Pick up some books, electronic or physical. And go through them and see where you can, work on your own stuff, work on your own network, and how can you make your own network a little safer, your own computer. How many people who have their own computer, also have admin rights as the default on their computer, things like that. Take away your admin rights and then try and do something and see how well you can get along and really understand, how everything is affected by what you choose to do.
So then you were doing the security. So you were with the one company, and then you went to so you were with North Carolina Farm Bureau Insurance, but then you were able to go over to Verizon. Was there a reason for the switch? Like, was it a better job offer? Did you get more out of going?
It was a better job offer, and it fit with the family. And that was the bigger thing, is it fit with the family. Verizon was the Security Operations Center, the SOC. And that actually wound up being nights.
Oh.
So
did you know that?
I volunteered to help somebody out, and 2.5 years later, but it was good because it gave me an opportunity to go back to school and finish. And so, I worked at night and came home, slept for a couple hours, went to school, came back from class, went back to sleep for a couple more hours. And
so like, what kind of shift was that then?
10 to 7.
10 to 7, really?
Yeah, something like that. It gets hard right around 3 or 4.
I would imagine. So that was not the plan. That was just something.
That wasn't the plan, but that was what worked out, and it was a good experience because working in the SOC at night, that's when everything gets done. I mean,
interesting.
When no one's working. It's typical IT. You can do everything when no one is there. So, all of the break fix things were done at night. Rebuild a F5 load balancer at night. Rebuild a Cisco router or firewall. It was at night. And it was a good experience because it was remote. So there was no equipment within thousands of miles of where we were.
Really?
So, you might be working on a firewall in Orlando and a firewall in China. So for different companies and banks, and you get a lot of experience on a lot of different things, and that's why I was there, was to build on that experience and help out, because I knew a lot of different things at that point.
So you went from there to Lulu. Do you think about trying to get a different job at Verizon, or was the Lulu.com a better?
I was kind of limited in where I could move up in Verizon.
Really? I think it would be big enough. You'd have a lot of...
Not without switching groups.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I would have had to move out of the Security Operations Center and do some other function to move up. And so it just fit better. And Lulu gave me a chance to try a startup type of environment and a more internet-focused company where everything is done on the internet.
Because how old was Lulu? Because you're saying this was 2013. Because Lulu hasn't been around that long.
Lulu's been around a long time, actually.
Really?
More than 10 years.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay,
so, but it's an internet company, so all their business is done online. So it's a new environment from what I was used to. It's different than working in, say, a regular company where, you may not have that web sales focus.
So how did you find it as a bit? So especially, you went from Verizon, which is as enterprise, to like Lulu, which is more startup. What was the culture like? Was there any issues that you ran into? Any things you were surprised with or happy with, or?
It was a lot younger in type of environment. it has that more startup. There's a ping pong table and
yeah.
Basketball hoop and all those things, and having a more focus on open source software and more of a 24/7 environment as opposed to some of the other ones that I had worked in before, where 8 to 5 is typical for everybody, and it was fun to see and enjoy and get that experience. You have to react a little differently when all of the business is online, and you have to work in your windows at very, very small windows to take an outage.
So in going there is, one thing, everybody has this idea that you work in computers and we all have the same career, whatever. And so I'd be curious, like, how did you feel as an IT person in one of these startup worlds? Because it's like, the developers, especially developers in startup worlds, really have a whole different way of doing things than most IT folks. Like most IT folks and developers, it doesn't always go so well. Like, how did you feel as an IT person there? Did you feel like you were actually, because a lot of times, like I've seen with some of these companies where like the IT, the people that deal with the pipes aren't necessarily respected that much. It's just, this is the stuff that's supposed to work. We're doing with all the cool stuff. Like, how did you feel on that kind of thing?
I didn't get that as much, because they'd been around a little while, so it was a little bit different.
Yeah.
But, it's, I could see that, yeah. That it's a little different. They like to do things in their own way. Yeah. And so I picked up more than one Nerf gun and fired a shot at them. So.
And then you go from there to Allscripts. So you're only there for like a year and a half. Is there a reason you weren't there that long? Was there better opportunities, or?
Allscripts was more, that was going to be a security engineer. It was straight security engineer. They had a hosting unit they were building up, and so I was like the second engineer in the whole group, and putting together all of the security, F5 and Imperva database monitoring, and all of the moving components that go with hosting something that's more mission critical. I mean, you're talking databases for hospitals, electronic prescriptions. So it's stuff where there can't be any mistakes. There can't be any open holes. Otherwise somebody gets a Vicodin prescription that's not supposed to. Things like that. So it was going to be a challenge.
Yeah. But you were only there for like 6 months?
Yeah, I didn't stay there because I had my boss from Trimaris call me and say he needed some help.
Oh, okay.
And it was an opportunity I couldn't refuse.
Oh, okay.
He said he needed some help in there, and there's a chance that I can take over for him when he's gone.
So did you feel sheepish at all? Because I mean, that's one of the big questions with people is like, when is it okay to leave a company? So 6 months, even in the tech world, that's pretty short.
That was really short. Yeah, I felt bad about that because I'd never done that before.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was just an opportunity I couldn't put down. I mean, I gave my boss as much notice as I could, and said, I was honest with him and said, this is why. It's not because of anything here. I liked working there. So.
Did you is there anything to make it easier if you're going to be like leaving, especially that quickly?
No, there's nothing that makes it easier. You just got to suck it up. Catch him on his way out the door, so at least he has he can think about it for a little while before he comes back at you.
Yeah, okay. So, like, if you're leaving a company like that, did you get a contract from the new company just to make sure? Because, like, some people will leave their job and then the next job doesn't come through, and then they feel like they burned the old bridge. And did you get, like, a contract? Like, especially at your level, do you get something in writing that they're actually going to hire you?
You get an employment offer,
Okay,
and in this case, it was something that I got in writing. So. that's always nice if you can.
Yeah.
It doesn't always come that way, but usually you get an offer letter, and hopefully, they'll honor it.
Yeah, hopefully. And then, so you're actually a committee member at the EC Council, the Scheme Committee, and you've been that for 5 years. So how do you, because EC Council is kind of one of those things like you hear about, but you don't really understand that there's human beings behind it. How do you become a committee member there?
Well, I'd actually written some test questions for one of their certifications through another group, through Pearson, who was running their testing. And they saw I was certified, had one of their certifications. I had picked up one of the forensics ones. Okay. And so they had asked me if I wanted to join. They were putting together a group to give advice about how to make the certification successful. How should they proceed? Ask questions. As a secondary resource in case someone had an issue with the test or the way that it was handled. No. They'd have somebody else to go to that wasn't particularly an EC Council employee, but an outside group.
Huh. Okay. So do you enjoy doing that? Is that something that you would stick with? Because you've been there for 5 years. Is that something you just do for your entire career, or?
Yeah, it's always nice to be able to, one, it gives me a chance to give back, and help guide, where I think the certification, give them advice on we've given them advice on where we think the certification should go, and hey, you need to bring in these types of components to make the test more valuable to everyone. You see that with a lot of the testing nowadays is more has a lab component of some kind where you actually do something. The old Cisco tests where you actually had to type a command, and Microsoft where you actually had to do something like the drag and drop and all of that gets. But to bring in those components to make things, because it's not enough to know what's in the book if you can't apply it. Okay. If you can actually show that you can do it, it makes it a lot easier to say that that's good.
Cool. And then, so if somebody does something like that, like how many hours a month does that take out of your life?
It really doesn't take hardly any amount of my time. It's an hour or two a quarter.
An hour or two? Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's really not much. And then, the nice thing is we'll get invited to one of the conferences and we'll have one of our meetings there. A couple extra hours to have a meeting once a year there at one of the conferences, and hey, I get to go to the conference.
So is that the kind of special benefit do they pay for travel or anything?
No, they don't pay for travel or anything, but to be able to go to a conference for 2 days, hey, that in itself is worthwhile. It gives, you get to meet other people, you get to learn what new things are available.
That's cool. So then you gave questions to Pearson for a test. How does that work? How did that happen?
You can sign up. You kind of put yourself in Pearson's system, and I guess they asked me if I'd be willing to do it. They found me and asked me, and so I was willing to do it. And I wrote some questions for them, and they came back and they've asked me to write some stuff a couple other times. And
that's cool.
They'll give you a topic and say, here's the material that we want you to do something on. The last time they asked me, it was fire safety questions. And
fire safety questions?
I'm in IT. You're asking me which type of fire extinguisher to use, and
weird.
Little extra research on those.
That's cool. All right. And then, so the other thing you've done is a QA reviewer at unnamed IT security training company. So question and answer review or quality assurance review?
Quality assurance.
Quality assurance review.
Yeah.
So what were you doing? What was that? What were you doing quality?
That's, that company teaches a lot of online courses. And so it's, going through the online courses and making sure that the audio matches what the slide's supposed to be. The slides all look good. The instructor's not talking about something that they shouldn't be talking about, or bad words, or finding all of that stuff and making it presentable to everybody. So that's always a challenge. But the nice thing about doing some of these things is usually you'll get access to the materials, or you'll get access to the courses. So whenever possible, look for those opportunities where you can be a beta tester or a reviewer. Help people. There's always the opportunity to review books, and if you have a skill set in a particular area and somebody's writing a book, that's what you want to do. You can go back and review their books, and you get to see what their material is, and it's always fun.
So with that, was there some kind of posting you saw that you applied for, or did they come to you? Or?
They asked for some help. That was I had taken a couple of classes from them, and so they came in and asked if anybody wanted to do that, and so I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. That can take a little more time, but it's a situation where you also get paid too, so you can also get paid. Paid's good.
Paid is always good. Okay, so with that, then you become the associate director of IT at
Chimerics.
There we go. I'm a computer guy. So the associate director then. So how big is Chimerics?
Chimerics is about 100 people right now.
It's 100 people. Okay.
And I anticipate it'll be more than that within a year or two.
Like how many? Like 1,000 people or 100?
300, 400, 500.
Really? Okay.
I'll know more here shortly.
Okay.
As we get closer to the June timeframe, I'll know more.
Yeah.
But it is a smaller company. But the advantage is that I'm in there to give them direction on network and security, make sure everything is running, and I get the opportunity to craft the network and everything the way that I would like to see it. Okay. To really apply the skills and knowledge that I've learned over the years and put all of those things in practice. So that's the advantage.
Yeah. So when you're going to be growing like that, but you're not exactly sure how you're going to be growing, how do you plan for that growth? Because if you know you need to build an infrastructure for 500 people, that's pretty easy. If you know you need to build an infrastructure for more than 300, less than 1,000. That's because
that nebulous, very nebulous area that you're shooting for. You do what you can. You size as much as you can, because at some point, you're going to have to replace things. There's just no way about it, and not a lot of companies are going to want to let you spend $500,000 to scale for 5,000 people right at the outset. So you build as much as you can. You look at things like virtualization and what can you do with virtualization? How is it a choice between taking the VMware Essentials license or taking the VMware Enterprise license? Can you get away with going with the Enterprise license? Will they pay for it? If they pay for it, then you're positioned to use that. Scale your firewall as much as you can scale it. Don't pick the lowest end firewall that you can get to make it work. Count on having to upgrade your bandwidth. Don't put in something that you can't upgrade or replace.
So is there any way you butter up the C-level executives to try to get them the equipment you need? I mean, is there, like with me back when I was a consultant, whenever I knew there was going to be an issue, I start talking to them about 9 months beforehand, so that when I needed a thing, they would actually suggest it themselves. Hey, why don't you buy that new server? Oh, okay. Like, is there any?
That's always good. Yes, and sometimes it's showing them what another company their size is doing,
Oh,
or
okay.
bringing them, what's the topic of the month or
Yeah.
the week.
Okay.
Malware's a big thing.
Yeah.
Cryptoware,
Yeah.
ransomware is a big thing.
Yeah.
If you hopefully your CEO is important,
Yeah.
informed enough to notice security topics as
Yeah.
they'll respond well when you bring them those things and say, hey, this is my concern.
Yeah.
This is where you should have the concerns as well. And let them drive the what can we do to get there, and see what you can get.
Yeah. So do you, like, for communicating with the higher ups then, do you find it's better to do it one-on-one? Do you try to do it in the weekly meeting? Like, how do you try to communicate some of this stuff so they understand what's going on?
I'm fortunate that I have a level of management between me and the CEO, but at the same time, she'll walk into my office and say, hey, this is what we're doing next week.
Yeah.
Plan for it. But it's just whatever works. You never want to walk into a meeting not having prepped them ahead of time.
Okay. Yeah.
You want to send them the information as much as possible.
Yeah.
Give them the information, and then when you go in to talk, they've already got it. They've probably already reviewed it. They at least have an opinion on it for you already.
Yeah.
If you walk in there blind, the answer is probably going to be no.
Okay.
Because it's a money decision at that point.
Yeah.
So prepare them, prep them, talk to them ahead of time, 9 months if you have to. Just give them a heads up.
Oh, interesting. So you're there, and your plan is to be, you're the associate director of IT, so your plan is to be the director of IT. So then a company, especially a smaller company, what would be the difference between the director of IT and the CIO?
A lot of times there's not that kind of difference.
Okay.
That is essentially a CIO type of position. My current boss is now that type of position, but he was IT director before.
Oh, okay.
So it's whether they want to recognize the CIO type of position or whether they want to keep it at a lower level. As IT director in a small company, you are doing everything.
Yeah.
So, you're the engineer, you're the network engineer, you're the security engineer, you're the systems engineer, you're the database guy half the time.
Yeah.
So, it just depends on what they want to do.
So would you ever, because all these titles are half made up, most of the time. Would you ever push for a better title? Even if you don't get anything else, not an extra dime of pay, not extra. Would you push for a CIO title just for your career? Would you ever do that now?
And the reason, I'll tell you the reason is at some point there's a diminishing return on that.
Yeah.
If you look at, there's a limited number of CIO positions, whereas, systems engineer or network engineer, you can find thousands. Really, once you reach that level and you try and push that level of a position, you're going to find it harder and harder to get a job.
Interesting.
So that if you get up there, there's not a lot of turnover. Unless something really bad happens. But you could go months or year without having another job at a CIO level.
Really? Okay.
Unless you're wanting to move, willing to take in another city, there's a whole bunch of things that you would have to give up in order to, just move like that.
Yeah.
And when you reach that level, a lot of it is not, it's not what you can do, it's who you know.
Okay.
You'll get asked to be those types of positions because somebody knows who you are already.
Okay. So that's it. I would not have expected you don't want that title.
No, there's a limit there. You may want to get there eventually, but it's a harder push. You got to be able to prepare to be out of work for a year. Can you do that? Most people can't afford to be out of work for a year.
Yeah.
So
then with your career now, so if you add all this stuff up, you've been doing this for quite a while. Then what is, you've only been here for like a year, but like for you, like 5 years, what would your plan be for 5 years out? Where would you want to be?
something similar, either where I'm at or somewhere else, depending on what happens. But, I'm reaching a point where the technical pieces get harder and harder to pick up.
Okay.
It's just, that's just the facts of life.
Yeah.
You can only shove so much into your brain before it starts rejecting. But, to really grow a group and be able to mold a business, the IT function of a business.
Yeah.
Having a background in all these different areas allows me to see a bigger picture of things. Even as I was working as a network engineer, I have experience in Windows servers, so I understand when somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm having this problem," I can go, "Yeah, that's not a network problem. That's this server problem because you need to do this on the server." That rounded education. So 5 years for me, I expect to be able to, I'm not going to give up the technical stuff. No. I'm going to get my hands in there every once in a while, and I do that all day anyway. But just to be able to guide an organization like that.
And then with all of the places you were, so you worked in large companies, startup companies, smaller company. What do you think was the best company size for if you're an IT professional, you're trying to get ahead? Like, was there any type that you preferred?
It wasn't so much the companies as much as the people. It's always finding the right people to work with.
Yeah.
Company size, it was a lot easier to start off in a smaller company and get a lot of experience in a lot of areas because there's less people to do your function.
Okay. Yeah.
You're going to wind up doing more jobs. You're going to wind up doing networking. You're going to wind up doing security and, maybe the website or whatever else it is. And then you just decide whether you can take that opportunity in a large company and be a small piece of it, and it just depends on what you feel like you might like. I like that everybody knows who I am. I like that, everybody can come see me and say, "Hey, I'm having this issue." But in a bigger company, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get the same kind of hands-on. It may be that you're operating remote. You may be in a cube all day. You may not get the opportunity to walk out into the data center and put hands on equipment as much as you would in a smaller company. So you just have to determine what you like.
What do you like? Okay.
I like the hands on equipment.
That's fair enough. So then I guess the final question would be, so what technology do you think over the next 5 years? What gets you excited? Where do you think the money is? Like what would you focus on if you were still?
Cloud's big. It's becoming bigger. OpenStack, the technologies that are similar to that, like Cisco ACI and all of those components. Virtualization is just continuing to explode as people that realize that we can do more with less, and hey, let's shrink everything down to one box. I think that's where everything's going. Security. And it's not just, you just got to have a really good understanding of all the pieces of the security. How can we do this and still keep the business running? Because you can lock it down as tight. I can lock it down tight, but then you can't do your job, and that kind of defeats the purpose. So.
The safest computer is the one that's unplugged.
Unplugged and unpowered.
So then with that though, with security, since so much is going to the cloud, there's a lot of people that just feel the cloud, for whatever reason, is just inherently insecure. Like, being somebody that's so focused on security, how do you feel AWS, Azure, any of this stuff? Do you feel it is more or less or the same as far as security is concerned with other infrastructure?
Yeah, there is that concern, you know, that the technology isn't as secure as it needs to be.
Yeah.
I think that's changing.
Okay.
I think with the focus on cloud security, you know, by Microsoft and Amazon, and I think it'll get a lot better.
Okay. Well, do you think, is it the concern is getting better or the technology is getting better?
I think both.
Okay.
The technology is getting better, and people are becoming less concerned.
Okay,
As everything's going to move that way, appears to be moving that way anyway. You're not going to have a choice at some point.
Yeah.
But you know, I think the technology is maturing enough that we're starting to get the focus on security. Okay. We're starting to get, you know, people to pay attention to, whereas you couldn't, you know, you could jump between AWS instances before, you know, on occasion. You know, Amazon's starting to realize that, you know, big customers aren't going to want to see that. Yeah. They're going to lose those big customers unless they can really show that they're paying attention to those things. Okay. So I think security's getting there. You know, security comes after everything's up. Yeah. Okay. Usually. Yeah. So that's where we're at.
Would you have any big heart attacks if your company started moving things to AWS or Azure?
Well, we are,
to
some degree. You know, the Office products are all moving to the cloud. Yeah. So that's going to be there. Yeah. You know, it's a lot easier to support Exchange out of the cloud when I don't have to worry about the server. Yeah. Those types of things. So it's moving that way. Are we going kicking and screaming? Probably.
Probably.
You know, you got to be able to relinquish control, and that's hard for a lot of companies. You know, and it's going to take a lot of people with a lot of expertise and knowing how to lock things down. That's where the opportunity lies.
Okay. Is there, if you want to become a cloud security expert, is there any particular training or certification for that?
There probably is. I haven't looked yet.
Okay.
The one thing I do know about is the ISC Squared's got the cloud security course, and as does ISACA. They both have a cloud security, cloud training.
So with that, and you've got a whole pile of certifications here. Do those like once you start getting this many certifications, do they matter for getting a job, or is it for your own pride?
Yeah, it's more for my own pride.
It's more for your own pride. Okay. Well, you got so many, like, I don't even, like, literally don't know what some of these are, so that's where.
It's a lot of fun. You know, I try and make sure that, you know, if I take a class and it's got a test associated with it, I take the test.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I don't want to waste that opportunity. Yeah, are there some that I don't particularly do? Sure. Yeah. You know, I don't do reverse engineering malware every day, but I have the certification just because I know enough about it. Okay. You know, and a lot of it, it's all the same information. You know, half the information in one test is going to be in another. Okay. You know, if having that understanding and that background helps. Yeah. You know, the biggest things for me at this point were making sure that I had the degree to go with it. Okay. And you know, that shows that, you know, that I've done the college stuff, and the certifications show that I can do more than that.
Would you ever go for a PhD?
No.
No, not even a question. No.
I'll do another master's degree in something else. You know, something that piques my interest that day. But you know, pick up forensic linguistics or something. You know, something odd, and tack it on there and make it look good.
Oh, cool. Well, it was good talking to you today.
Thanks.
Yep. So this was John Foley, Associate Director of IT. As always, enjoyed doing this interview, and I'll see you guys in the next one.